we've kind of inquired around a little bit, but there's nobody that we know of. Well, except in the police department, there's one. There's one that we know of, but that's the only one. So, all right, going on to lines 450 and 460. 450, Board of Education. We did not make a change. We recommend $37,504,875. And with the 460, I'm going to comment on both of those after we read off the numbers. Again, no change, $333,335. The reason that I did not ask the Board of Selectmen to make a change on this is there are several reasons with that. Number one, in respecting the work that the Board of Ed has done, they have the legal obligation to maintain the quality of the services that we provide our school children. I didn't want to be in a position of making a cut for the sake of making a cut, which would just be more of a show item than anything else. I think the board has done an excellent job of squeezing out excess every place they can and maintaining the quality that this town has invested in over the last 10 years. It's always a difficult conversation because you could take $1 million or $2 million out of the school budget, and the next year the kids will show up and they'll do pretty well. It isn't until over time that you begin to see the impact if you go too low. And I believe very strongly that our citizens should have the right, seeing as how we have a split budget anyway, to decide if they can continue to fund the Board of Ed at the level that maintains the services that we have so far. This does contain a little bit of pain in that budget, as I went through the presentations with Mr. Kravis and the team on that side. But I think that I hope you will consider to let the voters have their say in maintaining the quality of the schools. We have an excellent system here. Now, same thing with 460 with building maintenance. I know that the facilities subcommittee has worked. They're almost unpaid employees. They put so many hours into examining the buildings, creating a long-term plan, really going over the maintenance needs with a fine-tooth comb. So again, I respect the work that they put into this, and I believe that this is critical and necessary work that they have in the budget. So I did not propose a change to either of those two budgets and pass those along as they are.
Parks and Recreation, right? Tabled that. Do we have any questions? Was there the reason we tabled that last night?
There was a question about the $20,000 challenge.
Okay, that was it.
The programs.
That position is currently vacant, but it's my understanding that it will be filled.
And it's paid for out of
the programs.
So it's a wash when the money comes in for the program.
Right. That's why you have to keep in mind if you cut program expenses, we have to cut the program.
That's why we adjusted that. The selectmen had recommended a minor cut in program to you. I think $316 doesn't make any sense, so we adjusted it last night.
Doesn't compute.
So the number we're looking for is 882,035. Add the 396 back, right?
Yeah. It's 880. Do you want to make a motion in that regard?
Yeah, well, we approved 882,035 for cents 380.
882,035, correct?
Yes.
That's the correct bottom line.
8. So what do you think?
Is that I want to make sure that's the correct amount.
882,035.
Yes.
All right. And do we have a second? Mr. Didi seconded, Mr. Slipton made the motion. Any further discussion on count 380?
I just got a quick question.
Go ahead.
On the 882,035, we should subtract from the 305,358 for the income, correct? So the true cost is...
I wouldn't be too concerned about that because we haven't put the final income numbers together yet.
Well, roughly it's still...
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure...
We're not taxing the people for that amount.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that everybody in the audience understands
It's a
that.
very good
It's not
point.
$882,000
That's that money,
expense.
the income that comes in is when we get to the income.
$550,000 expense.
Yeah, that's a good point that people understand. They're not being taxed for the program. The fees paid for. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'm recusing myself on that.
Okay, Mr. Regan is just currently a member of the Park and Rec, right, Commission? He's recusing himself. So it's a 6-0 vote. And the next account is employee benefits, and I think we had this table. This is where as far as we got last week, I believe. Yeah. And employee benefits, I guess they wanted you to speak on that very if there be any further adjustments.
Are there any questions?
I have a question about the
Yes.
pension funding and where we can cut it back if possible. Why do we need to fund it at 16%? Basically what's behind all of it.
Well, what's obviously driving that number is the valuation that's done every year, the actuarial valuation. For the last plan year, our interest rate assumptions are at 8% for the pension plan, which is the norm, between 7 and 8%. We actually lost 8%. So there's a 16% difference in the plan
I understand that, but so we have to fund it fully.
To be perfectly honest with you, you don't have to fund it at all.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. I mean, what are the ramifications?
We've got about $1.1 million going out the front door every year in pensions. So we at least have to put $1.1 million through the back door just to compensate for that. We were very fortunate last year because of the investment strategies that were employed by Morgan Stanley, Solomon Smith Barney, along with our pension commission, where we took we're never going to hit a grand slam with our investment allocations, but we're trying to hit singles and doubles and triples every once in a while, and that's basically what we've been doing. So the trailing 12 months have been up about 12%, which is very good. So this is the minimum part for recommended contribution. So
Market's on the uptick now.
yeah, and our goal obviously is to meet the investment objective of 8%. Right now, our asset allocation is about 70-30. 70 fixed income treasuries, 30 in equities. It's my understanding from talking to Mike Fort, who's our investment advisor, and the Insurance and Pension Commission, I think, has a meeting on the 24th, which unfortunately they've invited me to attend. So there may be some changes in the allocations, looking at exchange traded funds, those other areas where they can get into. But the maximum contribution is much higher. If you wanted to get your funding levels up,
Is there a way can we defer some of this so it doesn't? Can we defer some of it so it doesn't take a big hit this year, next year? Is that not possible?
And it's possible.
I'm just looking for.
Yeah, it's possible. What I've seen happen in other municipalities throughout, it's too easy to do it the first time, and then the next time it's like, well, we didn't do it last year, so we won't fund it this year.
Yeah.
And that's how Waterbury got into trouble, Bridgeport got into trouble. Waterbury just did $350 million in pension obligation bonds, which they had to get approval from the state. Because all their pensioners were being paid out of the general fund. There was no trust fund.
Yeah, I don't think you should, cut it. I'm just asking, can you defer it? Is there a way to, take a short-term reduction here that you can pick it up next year?
There is no law in the books that says you have to fund, that amount. That's the recommended amount. It will go on the bottom line in your balance sheet. Next year is not meeting the, the recommended contribution.
Okay, how does that affect us?
Well, what's going to happen is then your percentage of funding to the accrued liability is going to go down. So the goal is to every year to gain on that. So at some point in the future, you're at 100%.
Right. Does that affect our bond rating?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Barry, this is in what we call the town side of the budget. This is one of the biggest increases for this year, particularly in the 115 employee pension account, right? And I think because people, perceive the budget, because there's two sides of the budget. There's the school side and the town side. And I think in this particular year, that's percentages of this or that are going to be more on people's minds or whatever. But I think that we should be pointing out that the employee pension includes both school employees and town employees, right? About, I think you said to me before, 180.
Non-certified.
The custodial staff and
paraprofessionals have their own 401A plan.
Okay, but it's custodians and secretaries.
Yeah.
And that's about
Nurses.
So just to be of that 340, the amount for pensions has gone budgeted in 2009-10 from $1,420,000. The requested this year $1,768,000. And it's a variance of $348,000. Ballpark figure, how much would that be for school employees and how much for town employees would that increase? If you went by 50, would it be a third or a 30%?
You really can't calculate it that way.
You can't?
Because, the valuations are all based on like the service, salary, average salary over 5 years, date of hire. Spouse's age, mortality tables. There's a number of calculations that go into a evaluation.
But to say if it's 180 active employees in the town and 50 of them are in the school group, it's nowhere near a majority, but it's certainly a 25 or 30% perhaps in the contribution, somewhere in that area.
I don't know if it's that high,
really?
But every year I give Terry the
in-kind. I know it's in the in-kind, but
the in-kind calculation.
But this is I guess what I'm saying, this is a increase that's going to pop out at people. It has already, because it's employee benefits is the biggest increase, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the town side of the budget. Just what I'm saying is it's not just town employees. It's a shared expense.
And I would, I'm not going to go out on a limb because I know this to be a fact, that this is the case in a lot of municipalities, especially with the losses that were sustained in the prior year. I think Norwalk lost 40% of their assets. 40. We lost 8. That's a lot of ground to make up.
Fairfield, how much did they lose? Were they in?
Well, they were in with
AIG.
Madoff.
Yeah.
With the money.
I'm sure that was pension funds.
Danbury had somebody that went to Madoff too.
They did?
I believe so. But in that $1,768,000, there's about $55,000 in there and $60,000, I believe, that we fund the paraprofessionals.
Right.
With as well.
Oh, that's in that as well.
That's in there, and also the police chief gets an annuity. He's not covered under the pension plan, and that's included. But that's broken down in
You're right,
documentation.
All right, I just want to make sure that make people aware that it's quite more complicated than what it appears. More components. I'll make a motion that we fund employee benefits account at $5,059,561, which is an increase over last year of $618,407. I have a second. Motion second made by myself and seconded by Mr. Teeter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Rogan, Mr. Regan are opposed.
Nay.
And Mr. Draper.
Bill?
Yeah.
If I may,
Go on to account 400. I don't think we addressed that one last night. We left when we recessed. This is the...
No, you stopped at 390.
Yeah, we didn't address this one last night. Non-governmental agencies. Last year, we only funded 3 of these, which was hospice for $2,000, the Veterans Holding Company, which is really the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and the Historical Society, who some arrangement on the building up on Main Street, and the New Opportunities of 6371, which is the Meals on Wheels. So we appropriated $13,871, and then it was revised. No, that's right.
That's right.
And requested this year from various organizations, We Care, Mental Health Center, Women's Center, Ability Beyond Disability, Regional Commission, Hospice again, Veterans Holding Company, NCDMS, which I forgot what that one is, and then the ARC of $1,000. And the selectmen recommended that we fund We Care at, I got the wrong, I got it here. Yeah, the selectmen recommended that we fund We Care at $1,000, Mental Health Center at $1,000, Women's Center at $1,000, Ability Beyond Disability at $1,000, Regional Commission at $1,000, the Hospice at $2,500, the Veterans Holding Company at $5,000, New Opportunities at $63.71, and that's it. So from last year's budget was $13,871. The requested was $23,554, and the Board of Selectmen recommends $18,871.
I'd like to make a motion that we fund last year's budget of $13,871 with the 3 that we funded.
Motion has been made by Mr. Slipkin and seconded by Mr. Kingston.
Can another motion be made?
Well, not unless you want to make an amendment.
I want to make an amendment to that motion.
Okay.
I'd like to amend it that we only fund Meals on Wheels, which is the Bethel community. Everything else is...
What's the logic behind that?
Well, wait, we got to get a second first. Does anyone want to second Mr. Roden's...
It's a 36% increase in this account.
But do we have a second for Mr. Roden? Mr. Reagan seconded Mr. Roden's account. So the motion, Mr. Slipkin, was that we funded last year at $13,871, and Mr. Roden has amended the motion that we have funded only at $6,371. Is that correct? For Meals on Wheels, and it's been seconded by Mr. Reagan.
What's the logic behind that motion? I don't understand. I live in a senior housing. There's 80-some people living there, many of whom participate in Meals on Wheels. What's the objection to that?
We're keeping Meals on Wheels to help the Bethel citizenry.
No, you're not. New Opportunities.
Well, that's Meals on Wheels.
I know.
The rest of these operations are in Danbury, and we're funding Danbury operations. We live in Bethel.
Well, the Veterans Holding Company is Bethel. Veterans Holding, as I said before, the Veterans Holding Company is the Historical Society and the Veterans of Foreign Wars who share the cost of maintaining the building up on Main Street, which was the old Congregational Church, which was moved, a while back, and was a damaged building, was repaired, and
I didn't know that was a Bethel
Yeah,
organization.
that's a Bethel
Can we
organization.
re-amend it again to include?
Well, why don't you withdraw your amendment
I'll withdraw it.
and make the second? Now, the other one, if you further want to, the other one, hospice is $2,500. Hospice
Is that Bethel?
they do work in Bethel, yeah.
I'm just looking for things that are in...
I understand.
Not them.
But do you want to make another amendment, or no?
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment that we accept funding of those opportunities, government subsidies for Bethel residents. Hospice at $2,500.
That was my motion.
That's Mr. Slifkin's motion. That was his motion. Mr. Regan, did you? I didn't ask Mr. Regan to withdraw your second on his amendment. Did you withdraw that? Okay, so we're back to the original motion by Mr. Slifkin to fund it at last year's account with the same three designated beneficiaries. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Chairman, it's been brought to the attention that Bethel people do receive services from We Care, the Mental Health Center, the Women's Center, and the Bill K. Beyond Disability and the Regional Commission. We do receive services from those organizations for Bethel residents. I just want to bring that to the board.
Thank you for your comments. As I said before, Mr. Straighten is representing Mr. Knickerbocker tonight. You're in charge, right? Rich, for a couple of days?
Yeah.
So he's first selection is ex officio of all boards. Any more comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'll try your minds. All in favor, signify by saying.
The motion again. Just to make
The
sure
motion is to fund the 405 400 account non-governmental agencies at last year's level of $13,871, which would designate the hospice, the Veterans Holding Company, and Meals on Wheels, a.k.a. New Opportunities.
Okay.
I
just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
You're proper. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 7-0. Okay. Next one is the 405 Intergovernmental Agencies on subsidies, which includes the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, Conference of Small Towns, which is a new one that Mr. Knickerbocker recommended to the Board of Selectmen, and they voted to recommend it to the Board of Finance. The Heart Bus, Sweetheart Bus, Council of Elected Officials, Memorial Day Parade, Veterans Assistance, Civic Improvements, the Visiting Nurse Association, which was the only reduction that they recommended from $40,000 to $20,000, which actually was last year's amount as well. And the Paramedic Intercept, which is $190,000. As we know, that's a program that's work in progress, and $190,000 is the best estimate, and Northwest Communications $7,900. I make a motion that we delete from that 333 COST, because I think we get enough service from Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, the bulletins they put out there. I think this would just be redundant. So I make a motion that we delete 1,025 from 333.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried.
So we're funding that at 372,214.
If we so choose to. So what's the new bottom line if we
372,214.
Yeah.
I make a motion in that we fund it at that level. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Now we'll go on to 410 Utilities, Charges, and Services. And this includes the biggest item, besides some increases, the biggest item is the amount for the hydrants. fire hydrants, which the town, the public, for the benefit of the audience, the Public Utilities Commission, which is our water and sewer, is an enterprise fund, is that correct term? And which is paid for by the ratepayers of the town of Bethel. All of you who have a sewer or water or both, you pay a usage fee. The town of Bethel is in that relationship as well. So any hydrants that serve any of the town buildings or along the street for fire prevention has to be paid for. And maybe Barry could elaborate on the legal obligation that the town has in that regard. And this is something that, because of the budget things over the last couple of years, the town has put off paying this, or the public utilities has put off charging the town because they knew we were in tough shape. So is that an accurate summation?
Yes. They actually passed this over a year ago.
Yeah.
And they deferred it based on the fact that when they passed it, we already passed our budget.
Okay.
And so they were somewhat sympathetic to that and said, okay, we'll defer those charges for 1 year. But you're correct. The state law requires us as a municipality, I know it's taken from Peter and given it to Paul, but we're required to pay the same rates as the user pays. And those are DPUC regulations. So if we're charging $500 a hydrant to the industrial park, we have to pay that same $500. And that's the increase. And that increase was based on a study that was done by Woodcock Associates, where they looked at the total utilities, audited the revenues and expenses for, we call them business type activities now, but enterprises, yeah, that's the term. And they came up with, we hadn't raised our rates in over 20 years. And because of that, the general fund has been subsidizing on a cash flow basis, the sewer and water departments. So at the end of the year, snapshot in time, the sewer department owed the general fund $1 million. A lot of that's timing issues. But will eventually has to be paid back.
Just go ahead, Richard.
Well, as Barry had just mentioned, the water department owes the general fund $1.3 million right now, and if the UC keeps going, the taxpayers are subsidizing the user's use. So this is just one step. They have made some steps in the program to raise the regular water rates, but this is on the hydrants, this particular issue. And as you mentioned, if we don't charge ourselves the price, we can't go off and charge the private people for that price. So this is one way that we're going to work ourselves out of that hole that we're in.
Thank you. Let's say, just for the benefit of the people here, the water and sewer, we're talking a combined budget every year of what? I've dealt with that 7 or 8 years.
Let's say about $4 million.
$4 million. And that's $4 million that is not part of the town meeting or town budget set every year. It's a private enterprise fund paid by the users. And the Public Utilities Commission, who governs it, is made up of the 3 selectmen plus 2 appointed members. And that's a board of 5. And they're the ones who govern that. The Board of Finance has nothing to do with it other than paying them. And so if you're interested in how they operate and how they work, they meet monthly, and their meetings are posted on the board out here. So if you are a user, you might be interested in coming. Yes, sir.
I just want to point, the fire hydrants in Stony Hill have been taken over by United Water Company, and we are currently, not this year, but the next year budget, they have increased the rates. We got relief on this year, but in the next year, we're going to be charged $950 for all those hydrants.
Per hydrant? Yeah. How many hydrants are in Stony?
I think it said 66.
It is what it is.
It's just like a light bill or phone bill that we have.
Yeah.
So the main thing is the hydrants, though. It's not the
Well, you pay.
taxpayers of the town paying for the.
Well, you pay water usage.
The water
What I'm
usage is
getting.
what you're paying.
I'm trying to find where that line is.
It's actually, it's what's called an interfund payable and receivable. It's not, you're not subsidizing it. On a cash flow basis, you are.
We are.
Right. And, but if you were looking at interest rates at 6 or 7 or 8%, I'd be charging the sewer and water departments an interest. But when you're looking at 1%, it really doesn't make a difference. But that money has not been appropriated. It's just, it goes on the balance sheet as a due from water, and eventually that's got to disappear. The sewer has disappered. Pretty much.
It's down to 50,000.
Yeah, and so what I think is going to happen, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think is going to happen during the next study, because we're having another study done, is you may see the sewer rates come down and the water rates go up. Because when they adjusted the water rates, that automatically adjusted the sewer rates up, which was the intent at the time to get the sewer out of the hole. And now it's out of the hole, so we may have to lower the sewer rates.
But the money that the town lends to the...
It's a loan.
It's a loan. It's unlike the Social Security Fund, which 50 years ago Congress authorized that the cash flow could be used in the general budget. So there's no Social Security Fund, it's just full of treasury bonds and IOUs, basically, right? But we don't work. The town doesn't operate that way.
No,
the money gets back to the treasury.
Right.
Any other comments? I make a motion that we fund account 410 at $2,380,404, which is an increase of $190,000. All things being equal, the other accounts in there, the gas, fuel oil, street lights, didn't go up hardly at all. We have a second on that? Mr. Slipkin seconds. All? Yes?
Just Wendy and I have both received some phone calls from various people saying, why do we do business with CLP? And where we could buy energy someplace else. But the bottom line is, we don't buy our energy from CLP. So if you've heard that, we buy it from Constellation New Energy that we locked into a consortium at 8.7 cents per kilowatt hour until December 31st of 2011. We cannot get away from CLP on the transmission side. They own the lines. So we actually get two bills, one for the energy and one for the transmission. So I just want to put that.
No, I appreciate it. Any information that helps people understand what's going on is worthwhile. The motion has been made second, and I guess there's no further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried. And down to miscellaneous charges and transfers, which includes a contingency, wage account, wage adjustments, town hall expense. The transfer to capital account, which is like a short-term rainy day account for any capital projects that may come up. We funded a lot of things over the years. That was started about 20 years ago. And capital equipment, the Board of Selectmen recommended a funding of $452,302. And the biggest increase in that is for the wage adjustments for the contracts, salaries going to improve. I think it's a good thing to point out that last year, which was a difficult budget year, as we know, we were down, but in fact the town budget was below zero last year, that are known as the classified employees, of which there's how many, 18, 20 classified? We're talking Barry and Wendy, we're talking the police chief, police captain, the tax assessor, tax collector,
Park and Rec director,
Bill. They all took a wage freeze last year, which was different than a furlough. They took a wage freeze, which basically was probably the most generous thing that was done, because that affects their career and pension for the rest of their working days. So there's probably money in any wage adjustments made this year. Their salaries are determined on the recommendation of the first selectman. There's a rating process which is used to evaluate whatever salary increase they will get for the year. I'd just like to point that out because it was a significant sacrifice that these people made last year for the town of Bethel.
And keep in mind also that we've reached a point now where the assistants in the offices are making more than the directors.
Yeah, there's already one case.
There's already one case.
And they get more.
Probably going to be a couple others that are going to be very close or above.
Anyone want to make a motion on this count? 420?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Kingston makes a motion that we fund that at 452?
032.
032. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Dieter seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Regan, Mr. Draper vote no. All the rest are voting yes.
Appropriate to
5 to 2.
some of the department heads making less money than some of the people that work for them. Is there anything going to be done to make some adjustments to that? Because,
I think the intention is to do that this year.
This year?
Yeah. To what extent
I would
the first selectman will do that?
That doesn't seem the way it ought to be working.
But yeah, the intent is to take care of that.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're up to account 430, the senior center. And we had several recommendations. The amount requested was $133,632, and the selectmen made several recommendations which would bring the recommended amount down to $126,012. And we did take out a request for capital equipment, or it's actually like it was a space needs study, which we felt that it should go first to the permanent site committee. I'll make a motion that we fund this account at $126,012.
Second it.
Mr. Dieter seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 7-0. 435. And it's the library, and the budget for 209-210 was $737,618. And the requested budget for this year is the same, $737,618 from the library board, and the selectmen recommended that we funded at that amount. I'll make a motion that we follow the recommendation of the selectmen and approve the library request, one of the few accounts that's unchanged, $737,618.
I'll second the motion.
And we have a second from Mr. Dieter. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Draper votes nay, 6-1. We come to debt service, account 440, and it shows an increase from last year was $4,187,023, which includes the municipal center's roofs and principal, the new middle school principal and interest. When we say the new middle school, I'm talking about the one that was built in 1991. The capital improvements and interest, bond issue from 205 and the principal, or 202, principal and interest, and bond issue from 204. Those include Berry School and the library and Stony Hill Fire Department. And the newest one is the high school project, which is online this year for an interest amount of $839,106. And that's the driving force behind the increased debt service of $4,187,23 to $4,539,603.
Planning to do, and I think I've pretty much made my decision today after talking with our financial advisors from Webster Bank, is that we're going to go ahead and do what's called an advanced and refunding issue. The potential savings at this point, net of issuance costs, and the issuance costs are going to run about probably around $60,000. Is $480,000 savings.
With the board, we're up to the 450 account, Board of Ed. The chairman of the Board of Ed has told me that their increase would be about $200,000 less if they could count on the excess cost money for the special ed coming from the state, which they don't know. And maybe you want to put it in your own words?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Our budget really is around 2%, but flowing down to us from the state at a projected reimbursement for excess costs for 2010-2011 at 60% is costing us another $200,000. Without that, if we got just the money we're getting this year at 77%, that $200,000 goes away in our budget, would be at a 2% recommendation. What I have proposed to the chairman of the Board of Finance is at 2.56% approval, we would have, and I need to get this approved by the Board of Finance.
Board of Ed,
Board of Education. We would have an understanding that if that 60% comes in better, it comes in at 77%, because there's a lot of screaming going on right now that we've got these mandates and no relief and 40% less money. And the screaming is happening across the state. That if it comes in better than that 60%, all that money goes back to the town. Comes in at 77% like we're getting this year, that $200,000 goes away. That $200,000 goes to the town, and the net effect would be a 2% budget increase for that.
Everybody understand that? I will open the floor for the 450.
I move that
Kingston had a motion.
Yeah, I move that we fund the 450 account at $37,504,875.
Second motion.
Motion's made and seconded. Is there discussion? Mr. Slipkin.
First, I'd like to compliment Terry again for having the most transparent budget that we've had in my 3 years on the Board of Finance. It makes everything a lot easier to understand, and there was a lot less questions. With that being said, I'd like to remind everybody on the Board of Finance that the strategic school report that I talked about the last time, which detailed the last 5 years, enrollment in Bethel is down 6.2% for the last 5 years. The budget is up 14% for the last 5 years. And even after we zeroed out the Board of Ed last year, the test scores were the highest that they ever had, and it was a great job by everybody. So those are my comments.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to
go ahead
to make a comment. I am in favor of accepting the proposed budget for several reasons. One, I think it was put together very thoughtfully by a very responsible board, taking great pains to understand what the cost was, and also to keep in mind the burden on the taxpayers. And I think a very good compromise was made. Second, the quality of our school system has improved tremendously over the last 10 years, and that is primarily due to ongoing programs that take a lot of momentum, start slowly but build over time, and that momentum has now come to fruition where we have an extremely good school system. Last year was a 0% increase, but in addition to that, the Board of Education funded the security camera system in the high school for about $105,000, which normally speaking would have been funded from the town, and in addition returned, I believe it was $152,000 to the general fund with a cost freeze. I think to have two zero increases, for example, in a row would do an extreme amount of harm to the school system, because I believe that under this 2% or 2.56, if the excess cost sharing does not materialize, will result in teaching staff headcount reduction, and I think that will be detrimental to the programs in the education. I think education is a critical town function, and I think we're doing extremely well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Anybody else have any comments at all?
I do have a comment. You just said that they gave back about $152,000 last year,
correct,
and also financed $105,000.
Correct.
Well, that's $250,000 where'd the money come from?
It was a hard spending freeze, and they didn't buy, my understanding is, needed equipment that they could have and would have used to good advantage.
But needed equipment should have been bought than the money going back to the town if it's needed that bad. So the way you're telling me right now is there could be $250,000 quote unquote fat in the budget.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
I can give you.
But that's how laymen will look at it that way.
It's pretty simple. It's excess cost. We never counted on the state coming in with 100% of excess cost reimbursement. They did.
For special education.
For special education. It's the same thing that we're talking about that now they're reducing and reducing. In that year, we ended up with a lot of extra money. So we were able to, between the spending freeze we put on and that additional excess cost, we had the funding to give back, and we did those things. This year, the excess cost is going down over $200,000, about $230,000 for us. In this year, after the budget for this year was approved. So we're absorbing any excess, that we thought we may have had. It's gone because the check's not coming in the mail. So that amount has already been completely more than stripped out of our budget. And sometimes we did leave a little bit there because, as you see this year, our special ed costs are also rising. So not knowing that a family could move in with 2 or 3 special needs kids and all of a sudden your costs skyrocket. We watch that special education very carefully. It's extremely volatile. But that being said, the check's not coming in the mail this year. We're scheduled to go down another $200,000 next year. We had to put that in the budget as additional costs that would need to be funded and borne by Bethel.
Anyone else? I would like to comment on this Mr. Kingston's motion. I was prepared, Mr. Chairman, to recommend a reduction in the 450 account from 2.56% to 2.28%, which would have dollar-wise would have been a reduction of $103,372, because I think that people are looking for us to shrink government costs, and the only way that you shrink government costs painlessly is through attrition, where people retire and you don't replace them. And they do have retirements this year at the Board of Ed, and I thought there might be savings there. But in lieu of the fact that Mr. Kravis has made the offer, which in good faith I would take, because it's based on the record we had last year where the money was returned to the town, that I would not make that motion, and I would support instead Mr. Kingston's motion, and hopefully that the Board of Ed will be able to deliver on the offer that Mr. Previously made here this evening. So I would support Mr. Kingston's motion. Yes.
Addresses to Terry or Larry, whoever has the answer. In your 2.56% increase on the administrative superintendent side of the budget, was anything looked at in there to be cut or be reduced this year?
I'll let Mr. Previs answer that because the funding of the superintendent's compensation is left to the Board of Education.
Were any reductions looked at or anything looked at?
What specifically are you talking about? About the superintendent?
Your administrators. The town where we have.
Are we looking to reduce administrators? No.
No, I'm saying, but in any of your costs in there, either salaries or wages or benefits, was there anything looked at to try to reduce?
I believe there has already been agreement on furlough days. Is that correct?
Yes, the administrative union, all of the administrators, with the exception of Dr. Chesley, Dr. Jordan, Mr. Germanero, and myself, are part of a bargaining unit. So the agreement is in place with the bargaining unit. And the bargaining unit has agreed to give 2 furlough days, which I have factored into the contingency line. Yes, per person. And they gave, I believe it was 5 last year, and they've agreed to 2 for 10 left. 2 per person.
And the superintendent's wages are considered by the board in June. And it would be presumptuous to put that into this budget, but it's been a common practice from year to year as we do that to make those awards if awards are due as we end the school year. And those are covered, obviously, within the budget that's approved.
I know that Mr. Gallagher commented earlier, and I know you've heard it 100 times, but last year there were those same 4 individuals that are administrative that are not in the bargaining unit did take a pay freeze, not furlough days, they took a pay freeze.
No, I mean, my side, the way I look at it, I'd rather see some cuts there. We don't have to. I don't want to see teachers reduced. I want to see head count reduced in teachers. If we're going to improve student efficiency, it starts with the teacher. And the administrators are important, but I also think cost starts from the top, not bottom, top up, top down. And that's my approach.
Yeah, we have had discussions over time about the administrative force that we have, the principal and 2 assistant principals in high school, principal and 2 assistant principals in middle school. And what we did this year is document as specifically as we could just what those job responsibilities are. Not only did we do that, but a number of board members, Ben Folk, myself, and Robin Renner, shadowed these assistant principals in both the middle school and the high school to make sure that we fully understood if these were their job responsibilities, what the soft part of that was. This is all the hard part that you see on paper, but it's more than that. These assistant principals go out and probably 3 times a week during the athletic season to all of these events, extracurricular activities that take place. They're the first ones there in the morning and the last ones to leave in the evening, and they probably catch a bite to eat, and then they're at a football game, a basketball game, supervising student behavior and supervising those activities. And it's just not during the week. It's a 7-day-a-week job for a lot.
You would agree, though, that they're very well compensated.
Yes. But we're training them to become backups.
Yeah.
If you look at the middle school alone, and I have a particular interest in middle school, given the age of the students that are there and the peer pressure that exists in that particular age group, the experimentation that takes place on sex and drugs and alcohol, and the change in their environment, coming from a very structured environment in the 5th grade out of Johnson School and then going to this new environment with a lot of peer pressure. And then getting ready to leave there, going on to high school where that whole experience there is totally different. Coming to the end, realizing that you really got to get it together because you've got 4 more years to either make it or not make it. And we spent a lot of time helping kids get from 5th grade into middle school and getting prepared for that. And we have what we call Freshman Academy to help these same kids go from middle school into high school. There was a difference of opinion on where we should have put that security system. There was a belief that it really belonged in the middle school and not at the high school. But we had a $32 million addition that we put on, and we needed to protect not only that facility, but we needed to protect our students and our teaching staff. We need to know who's in that building and why. Read about it every day in the paper. We are not willing to take that kind of liability risk. All our schools now are secure. No one gets in without us knowing why and what purpose they have.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to vote on this motion, or anyone else any discussion or question? The motion by Mr. Kingston is that the Board of Education account 450 be funded at $37,000.
No.
37. $37,504,875, and that was the motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did you vote, Mr.
Aye.
You voted aye. Okay, the vote is 4-3.